let's look at the forename Jared, shall we? In the book of Genesis, the biblical patriarch Jared was the sixth in the 10 pre-flood generations between Adam and Noah, and was the son of Mahalalel. That's right, Mahalalel, and the father of Enoch. And he lived 962 years, which tells you those people were not from this planet. But living 962 years is a bit like his mentor Kissinger then, isn't it? And the biblical text in Jubilees implicitly etymologizes the name as derived from the root YRD, descend, because in his days the angel of the Lord descended to earth to greet Jared. And this may be uncomfortable for religious people, I get that, but the angels of the Lord are the winged Draco, or the bird tribe associated with Thoth and Set. Now, alternative suggestions for the name's etymology include the words for rose, which is interesting as the rose is a symbol of Anu, who was the Lord of the Bible. And for those who are new, Anu was the king of the Draco reptilians. I kid you not. You may find it uncomfortable, but over time you will find that that is the truth. Other depictions of the name Jared calls servant, servant of Kishna, and the one who rules, which is why we have to watch that snake, because he's slithered off and hardly heard of now, but he will slide and hiss back in 2024, him and Ivanka. We do not want them two anywhere near our government. Yared 505-571, a namesake, was an Ethiopian bishop who introduced the concept of sacred music to Ethiopian Orthodox services, and he is regarded as a saint of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church with a feast day of 11 Genbot, May 19th. Now, all searches for the Genbot feast came up blank, which is interesting in and of itself. Perhaps it means Generation of Bots Festival. Now, at present, the name is attested among people of Protestant Christian cultural background, except there is no religion called Protestant. They were protesters. They were all Catholics. But not among those with a Jewish background, it is said. And yet again, like last week, the country of Ethiopia plays a prominent role. Why? Because it was the site of the fourth and final Garden of Eden that was not related to the people of Earth. All four of them were related to off-world entities intent on harvesting here. And also because they are part of the jet black race, who are also depicted on the Egyptian hieroglyphs that was dropped off here by Lucifer 75,000 years ago. Lucifer is the god of the Elite Jews. He is their god in the books Torah and Talmud. Now, last week we mentioned Sebek or Sobek, in Greek Sukkos. In ancient Egyptian religion, the crocodile god, whose chief sanctuary in a Fayum province included a live sacred crocodile. Petsukos, Greek, he who belongs to Sukkos, in whom the god was believed to be incarnate. Now, the Sukkos was portrayed in the Jurassic Park movie named a Suko Mimos. And in Jurassic Park, the two key locations was Isla Nublar, which means cloud, and Isla Sorna, which curiously or not, given it was an island, and when you link it to Epstein Island, perhaps it makes a bit of sense. Because if you type Sorna in, it is an acronym for Sex Offenders Registration and Notification Database Site. Why would they use that in Jurassic Park? The description and portrayal was very accurate. A dinosaur with a crocodile snout, which is the same beings in the Jupiter Ascending movie and also portrayed in the Egyptian hieroglyphs. Now, the gist of the plot in Jupiter Ascending was that Earth and countless other planets were established by families of transhuman and alien royalty for the purpose of harvesting the resulting organisms to produce a youth serum for the elites on other planets. Sound familiar? It should be. But Sebek or Sobek is the Maga that was mentioned last week. And Sebek may have been an early fertility god or associated with death and burial before becoming a major deity and patron of kings in the Middle Kingdom circa 1938 to 1630 BCE, which kind of coincides with the exodus out of India. And Sebek, it was said, was merged with Re, R-E. Yet again, the slight change of vowel. Re is Ra, the fake sun god. And they merged to constitute a crocodile form of that god known as Sebek Re. And in essence, the crocodile race were followers or warriors for Ra, just like the Jafar in the Stargate series. In reality, they were the slaves. That's how it worked. Now, the worship of Sebek continued in the Ptolemaic and Roman times in the Fayum and at Kom Umba or Kom Ombo in Upper Egypt and elsewhere. Now, Kom Ombo was originally an Egyptian city called Nubt, N-U-B-T, meaning the city of gold, not to be confused with the city north of Naquada that was also called Nubt Umbos. Now, interestingly, Naquada was the name of the mineral in the Stargate series for space travel and space mass destruction weapons. It's not a coincidence. Now, the city of Naquada housed the cult of Set and many temples to him. Cemeteries of mummified crocodiles have been found in the Fayum and Kom Umbu. The great common sense question again. So, the so-called Egyptians mummified crocodiles and cats. Does that make any sense? unless they both had another purpose. Sobek, also called Sebek, was an ancient Egyptian deity with a complex and fluid nature. He is associated with the Nile crocodile or the West African crocodile and is represented either in its form or as a human with a crocodile head. Oops. In other words, a chimera, which is on the Egyptian hieroglyphs, all courtesy of the much revered Atlanteans and or Atlantans. Ant-lanterns, as in ant people, which you can see on petroglyphs all around the Four Corners region. Now, Sobek was also associated with pharaonic power, not bad for a ruddy crocodile, fertility and military prowess, but served additionally as a protected deity with apotropaic qualities, invoked particularly for protection against the dangers presented by the Nile. Apotropaic magic is a type of magic intended to turn away harm or evil influences, as in deflecting misfortune or averting the evil eye. Averting the evil eye is another word used and yet not understood of its intentions. Is it relating to the eye of Horus or Ra? The evil eye. All of you will be familiar with the eye of Horus, which is actually the eye of Ra. But what you may not be familiar with is the squiggle to the left of the eye, below the eye, is showing the vril entering the eye. The line down below the eye is showing the bleeding from the insertion site. Now, the vril inject a quill that inserts a parasite through the eye, hence all the black-eyed celebrities, and this is known as droning. Those that are frightened to speak out mention the reason behind it is because of this droning process. And once the parasite, which is very similar to the symbiotes in the Stargate series, is inside the body, it takes over the host entirely. These are lizard entities. Excessive or increased blinking and or lip licking may possibly be linked to lizard traits that transfers with the consciousness. And the drones are said to be ruthless, psychopathic, sexually driven and sadistic. Sound familiar? Yeah, sorry, I couldn't resist that one. A melon hat, they do the living. Anyway, in this period, Sobek also underwent an important change. He was also often fused with the falcon-headed god of divine kingship, Horus. And there is the evidence of the trickery again. But it could also be the transference of consciousness from one body to another, often practiced by these parasitic hosts. And this brought Sobek even closer with the kings of Egypt, thereby giving him a place of greater prominence in the Egyptian pantheon. Now, the fusion added a finer level of complexity to the god's nature, and he was adopted into the divine triad, the Holy Trinity of Horus and his two parents, Osiris and Isis. That is your Catholic Church Trinity. Sobek first acquired a role as a solar deity through his connection to Horus, which is actually Ra, but this was further strengthened in later periods with the emergence of Sobek Ra, a fusion of Sobek and Egypt's primary sun god Ra. And this fusion is the symbiotic hosting technique that keeps the original alive for much longer by taking over a dying vessel and transferring the consciousness and merging with it as one, just like the Vril. Sobek Horus persisted as a figure in the United New Kingdom 1550 to 1069 BCE, but it was not until the last dynasties of Egypt that Sobek Ra gained prominence. And this understanding of the god was maintained after the fall of Egypt's last native dynasty in the Ptolemaic and Roman Egypt 332 BCE to 390 CE. And the prestige of both Sobek and Sobek Ra endured in this time period, and tributes to him attained greater prominence both through the expansion of his dedicated cultic sites and concerted scholarly effort making the subject of religious doctrine. I want to go back just a little. The understanding of this god was maintained after the fall of Egypt's last native dynasty, 332 BCE to 390 CE. Is that not the time when the so-called Bible and all its script was formulated from? The expansion of his dedicated cultic sites and a concerted scholarly effort to make him the crocodile snake god, the subject of religious doctrine. And that line right there says it all. Make him the subject of religious doctrine. Just at the same time the book was formulated.